Hey, what's going on? Welcome to Being Unbreakable. It is my pleasure to be here with you today. In this lesson, I'm going to dive into exactly what it means to be unbreakable. What does that even define? And then actually set you up for success in developing an unbreakable mind, an unbreakable body, and an unbreakable spirit. All right, let's dive into it right now. So let's think about first exactly what is the context does it mean to be unbreakable. And a couple things to this end. One of these is that being this idea of being unbreakable, it's not just hyperbole. As you start to understand it, you're going to realize that this is actually a place that is achievable. And as you realize this, you're going to realize, oh, it's not just this pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, but it's actually in the practice that you become unbreakable, that it is, you are that which is unbreakable. Now, where I get this philosophy, this theory, or even just these practices from is from a myriad of different locations, but one of the primary spaces that I dove into was from a book called Anti-Fragile by Nassim Taleb. Now, he illuminated for me in that book these fundamental laws of nature. And the basic premise of that book in Anti-Fragile is that not that we as humans are this robust system, because of course we can be destroyed, we can be killed, and we're not fragile either, yet there's this interesting thing that's happening in the middle ground where if we have small cuts, small stress, small stressors, small challenges, that we actually grow stronger because of it. Now this philosophy, this theory, it's not even a theory, it's just an observation, if you want to call it that, is true for all biologic, economic, and ecologic systems. So a herd of cattle, or a herd of gazelle rather, that has the weak and the sick out on the edges, if those weak and sick gazelle get sloughed off from the lion, well, now the herd as a whole is actually stronger because of that. So what we might perceive as bad isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just how we use it. So we use this context then to actually help us become unbreakable. So what that means then is if you understand the fundamental laws of physics and the fundamental laws of these principles of life, then you're going to actually be able to set yourself up for success. Now, I'm going to go over in this first lesson some high-level stuff just to give you some context, give you some insight into what it means to truly be unbreakable. And as you start to dive deeper into the under layers of this, you're going to start to kind of get it. You're going to start to realize, oh, that's why when I work out, it actually makes me a healthier individual. You're going to start realizing that these principles rather, they're true for literally everything that you hold valuable in life. Your relationships, your finances, your career, your health, everything that you hold dear has to do with these fundamental laws of physics and life. So before I even dive into this, I want to give you a story really quick about me and how I even came to these principles. You see, here's the thing with this information. I personally was broken. I was broken in so many different ways. I was broken mentally, I was broken physically, I was broken emotionally, I was broken spiritually at different times in my life. And I personally was on this journey, this place, if you want to call it that. I was looking for that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. I was always looking for something outside of myself. I was always looking for that thing out there that was going to give me the feeling of euphoria or satisfaction or fulfillment or whatever. But it wasn't until I actually realized what I'm going to teach you today and I got into the fundamental practices that I realized, oh, it has nothing to do with the out there. It has everything to do with the in here. And if I just simply act in accordance to that, if I simply just walk the walk and just do the path, do the process, then good things will come to me, period. And that's it. So once you understand these principles and you simply just take action in the fundamentals, you're going to realize, oh, that's all I have to do. And once you're there, that's when you are actually in that state of being unbreakable. All right, so let's dive in. So here's the first thing I want you to consider, and as I write here, just kind of follow along. If you want to write notes, that's great. Not a big deal. But the first thing I want you to think about is when you want to be unbreakable, think about life as a mechanism, right? The force of life. If you look at like an ecologic perspective, right? Life force is always moving in a certain direction. It's sort of like in the movie Jurassic Park when he's like, life will always find a way. So if you understand the fundamental principles of life, then and you can copy them for your own life, then you don't have to worry per se about the what ifs or I don't know what's on the back end of that or whatever. If you can understand these principles and start to apply them, then you don't have to fear the loss. Now, let's get into it. So what are the fundamental principles of life, right? So the principles of life are as follows. So number one, all of life must evolve. Now, what do I mean by that? All of life must evolve. All of life is always seeking a new end. All of life is always evolving. Perfect example, when Bill Gates and Warren Buffett reached that pinnacle of being the richest man or richest men in the world, they didn't stop evolving as humans. They recognized that, oh, we're here now, and so now we seek to give it away. So they're even evolving themselves in that state. There's never going to be a point in your life where you're just going to stop and say, okay, now I'm done. In fact, you're always going to be evolving, and you know this to be true. So how do you evolve correctly? Well, in any area of your life, your health, your relationships, your career, your finances, your spirit, whatever that pillar of life is that you're seeking to be better at, to optimize, to be more effective in, you simply just find a spot out in the distance and you aim yourself towards it. And what does that look like? That's just simply setting a goal. So if you can set a goal, a specific goal that you can achieve, then you're going to realize that the second fundamental principle of life will start to apply to that. So all you have to do in this is just set a goal. That's it. And once you set a goal and you start to achieve it, you start to attain it and move towards it, you are going to have to evolve as a human. And that's it. Okay. So, number two, what is the second fundamental principle of life is adaptation. Now, why adaptation is number two is because in order for us to evolve, we must be able to adapt. And what adaptation is simply we as humans, or an ecologic system or biologic system being us as life form, or an economic system, which is another form of life. All of these things have one thing in common, is that it requires that you give of oneself, that you give in order for you to receive, and as you give, you actually grow stronger every time. And that's the fundamental principle of adaptation. You see, why exercise works, if we're just going to use health as that framework for you, why exercise works to make you healthier, to make you more adaptable, to help you evolve, is because you're giving of yourself, you're giving of your energies, you're giving of yourself physically, mentally, emotionally in that moment. And when you go through that, you learn and you grow stronger. So you have to do this, you have to face challenge. And in the physical sense, right? In the physical sense, in the health sense, the way we challenge ourselves is through pushing weight, is through running, is through physical challenge, might even be emotional challenge, might be spiritual challenge. These challenges that when we recognize them as a good thing for us and we realize that it helps us grow stronger, then we start to adapt. Then once we start to adapt, can we evolve towards an end? Now, where we get super messed up in this is by never having set a goal, an objective that we're actually working towards. I see a lot of people all the time, they'll go to yoga, they'll go do CrossFit, they'll go on a run, but they never actually have a set objective that they're working towards. And so if you don't actually have a point at the end of the rainbow and you're not working towards it, all the adaptation is all for naught. You've lost the sense of satisfaction, fulfillment in it. It's as if the universe wants you to feel that sense of satisfaction by changing yourself, by challenging yourself to adapt towards a specific goal. So a perfect example of that as well is if let's say we're partners, we're training partners, and my goal is to run a marathon and your goal is to run a 5K, and I say, let's run 8 miles today, and you say, 8 miles? Why would I want to run 8 miles? I'm only going to run 3. That's my goal. You see, your challenge is going to be very different than my challenge. I have to challenge myself literally harder than you do. Now, the perceived challenge is totally different. That doesn't matter what it is, but I have to physically challenge myself longer, harder, so I can adapt, evolve to set my goal then. So you see the difference now. You have to, whatever the area of life, whatever the pillar of life is, you have to set the goal to wherever you want to achieve. Now, how far should you set the goal? Totally up to you. That's totally random. But it should always be so that you can push yourself. Typically, I set a long-term vision. We'll talk about that. Long-term vision, but short-term goals. That's a big difference. Now, let's go into the third principle of life. Number 3, the third principle of life is function. Now, this one's super important because if we're going to use health, because that's what we really want to framework around the idea of health, so often are we as humans out of function. We're dysfunctional. And in fact, when we're dysfunctional, that's when we create dis-ease. You've heard that term, disease. You get symptoms. Your body will be less adaptable. Any challenge that you might experience, whether it be falling over, not catching yourself, it might be anything. It could be any challenge. It could just be like somebody at school or somebody in your work had the flu and you caught it and now you're down for 3 days instead of being down for like 12 hours, because there's a big difference. If your body isn't functioning, and we'll talk about what function is here in a second, but if your body isn't functioning, you can't possibly adapt and you can't possibly evolve. So you have to start with function first. So when you think about your health in any area of life, again, finance, in relationship, in physical health, mental health, spiritual health, you have to start with function. Function, at the end of the day, is what you're going after. What most people have told you in the past, not even just most people, what society's norm about health is sign or symptom. It's looking a certain way or feeling a certain way. And so you judge your health based on feeling a certain way or looking a certain way. That way is totally wrong. It's completely wrong, in fact. And it's so wrong that it's not even giving you the wherewithal to understand that health has nothing to do with sign or symptom. It has everything to do with, are you functioning, are you adaptable, and are you evolving? So such that you're moving in this direction in the cascade is how healthy you will be, period. So if you stop doing these things, if you stop evolving, and you're like, I'm just going to coast, are you still going to be healthy? That's the question you have to ask yourself. It's sort of like the guy with all the muscles in the gym, and you say, dude, like, you got enough, bro. Why don't you just stop working out? And the guy's like, it's almost like he doesn't understand like your question. But if you have that belief system that, oh, you're going to get to a certain level and then you're going to be done, you're already setting yourself up for failure. There is no done. There is no end. There's no pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. You have to continually move. You have to continually go in this direction of evolution. And as you do that, then you will start to realize, oh, this is what it means to be unbreakable. You just keep going. Being unbreakable doesn't mean that you can't be broken. It doesn't mean that you can't be hurt or injured or sick. That has nothing to do with it. This has everything to do with going in this direction, of going in the direction from function to adaptation to evolution. So in the next video, I'm going to dive into actually what function is and how to function as a human so that you can optimize for function, ultimately become more adaptable, more effective as a human, and then evolve yourself faster, which then helps you get results that you want in life, which gives you that sense of satisfaction, which then all that good stuff happens. All right, so it really comes down to function. So in the next video, I'm going to dive into exactly what function is and how to function.